There are moments when life feels unbearably heavy, when you wake up carrying a weight in your chest you cannot explain. You are doing everything you can, praying, hoping, holding on, yet the situation remains unchanged. And quietly, a thought passes through your heart: what if nothing changes? What if this pain is permanent? But this is exactly the moment your soul is being invited to remember who Allah is. Allah is not limited by what you see. He is not constrained by timelines, logic, or circumstances. When Allah writes a story, He writes it with wisdom that exists beyond human understanding. What you call impossible is simply a place where Allah's power has not yet been revealed. Allah says He creates from nothing, brings life from what appears dead, and opens doors no one even knew existed. So when your heart feels stuck, understand this: Allah is working in places you cannot see. The pain you carry is not meaningless. The waiting is not wasted time. The heartbreak is not ignored by Allah. Every tear you shed in the quiet of the night is known. Every sigh is heard. Every prayer whispered with exhaustion instead of certainty still reaches the heavens. And sometimes Allah allows the heart to feel empty so it finally learns where fullness truly comes from. The struggle is real because you are human. You wanted things to work. You trusted people. You imagined a future that did not unfold the way you hoped. And now you are left rebuilding your heart while questioning your strength. But this is where faith transforms pain. Because Iman does not mean the absence of hardship. It means believing that Allah is present within it. Remember, the Prophet taught us that Allah is gentle with His servants. Even when something is taken away, it is never without mercy. Sometimes Allah removes what you love to protect what you need. Sometimes He delays to deepen your reliance on Him. And sometimes He breaks what you're holding on to so your hands finally open for something greater. This is what sabr truly means. It is not silence. It is not numbness. It is choosing Allah again and again, even when your heart is tired. And tawakkul is trusting Allah when the outcome terrifies you. It is saying, Ya Allah, I do not understand this chapter, but I trust the author. Allah says that ease follows hardship. Not always immediately, not always obviously, but always intentionally. And ease does not always come as a change in circumstances. Sometimes ease arrives as peace in the heart. Sometimes it arrives as strength you didn't know you had. And sometimes, when the moment is right, Allah does the impossible and turns the entire season around in ways you never imagined. So if you are standing in a place where everything feels uncertain, do not lose hope. This season is not the end of your story. It is the place where your soul is learning surrender, where your heart is learning who to trust, where your faith is being refined. Keep turning back to Allah. Keep making dua even when your voice shakes, because the one who placed this test in your life is the same one who will carry you through it, and He never abandons those who turn to Him. Allah specializes in turning impossibilities into miracles when the heart fully surrenders. This is not a metaphor meant to comfort the wounded heart. It is a reality rooted in who Allah is. When everything around you reaches a dead end, when logic fails and strength runs out, that is often the exact place where divine power begins to unfold. Because Allah does not operate within human limits. He is Al-Qadir, and what overwhelms you does not even burden Him. The heart struggles most at the point of surrender, because surrender feels like loss of control. We are taught to plan, to fix, to push, to hold tighter. But faith asks us to loosen our grip and trust the one who sees what we cannot. True surrender is not giving up hope. It is placing hope where it was always meant to be. It is saying, Ya Allah, I no longer rely on my strength, my timing, or my understanding. I rely on you. Allah says that He responds when a servant calls upon Him sincerely, but sincerity often emerges only after exhaustion. When the heart finally admits, I cannot do this alone, it opens itself to divine intervention. That is when doors open without warning. That is when relief arrives from directions you never expected, not because you earned it, but because Allah is merciful. The miracles Allah brings are not always loud. Sometimes they come as inner shifts, fear turning into calm, grief turning into acceptance, confusion turning into clarity. Other times, Allah changes the external reality entirely, rearranging circumstances in ways that could never have been predicted. What remains constant is this truth. Surrender does not weaken you, it aligns you with divine power. The heart that surrenders is not passive. It continues to pray, to strive, to hope, but without desperation, because it knows that outcomes belong to Allah. And when the heart finally rests in that certainty, impossibility loses its meaning. Hard seasons are not punishments, but preparations for unseen mercy. When life becomes heavy and the days feel longer than they should, the heart naturally assumes something is wrong, that Allah must be displeased or that faith has failed in some way. But Allah's wisdom is far more gentle than the conclusions we draw in pain. A difficult season does not mean you are distant from Allah. Often it means you are being drawn closer in a way ease never could. Allah refines hearts the way gold is refined, through heat, not comfort. The pressure you feel is not meant to destroy you, but to remove what cannot last. In moments of ease, the heart can become distracted, attached, or overly confident in what it sees. But in hardship, illusions fall away. The heart is forced to confront what truly sustains it. And what remains after that stripping is a deeper, purer reliance on Allah. Many of the greatest gifts arrive wrapped in difficulty. Allah may be preparing you for a level of mercy your current heart could not yet carry. Strength is being built quietly. Wisdom is being planted invisibly. The patience you are learning now will one day protect you from collapsing under blessings you once begged for. This is part of divine timing. Allah does not rush growth, and He does not give prematurely. Remember how Allah speaks of those He loves. He tests them, not to break them, but to elevate them. Hardship softens the heart toward others, teaches compassion, and reshapes priorities. It reminds the soul that this world is not home, and that true peace is found only in returning to Allah. What feels like delay may be Allah aligning every unseen detail for a mercy that will make sense only in hindsight. The heart may not recognize it yet, but this season is shaping a future that carries more light than you can currently imagine. When doors close, it is easy for the heart to assume rejection. The mind immediately translates loss into abandonment, silence into absence, and endings into failure. But Allah does not close doors out of cruelty. He closes them out of What feels like being denied is often being protected in ways the heart cannot yet comprehend. Allah sees what you do not see. He sees the harm that would have reached you had that door remained open. He sees the dependency that would have weakened your faith, the attachment that would have distracted your heart, the path that would have slowly pulled you away from Him. So He intervenes, not always gently, but always wisely. And sometimes protection feels painful because the heart was deeply attached to what Allah knew was not meant to stay. The soul struggles most when it confuses what it desires with what it needs. A closed door hurts because you imagined a future behind it. You planned, hoped, and prayed for it to open. But Allah answers prayers in more than one way. Sometimes the answer is not an opening, but a redirection. Not because Allah is withholding good, but because He is preserving you for something better aligned with your purpose and your akhirah. Remember, the Prophet taught us that Allah replaces what is lost with what is better when the servant trusts Him. But the heart must first release what it was holding. Closure is rarely immediate. Healing often comes slowly, yet with time, clarity begins to emerge. You look back and realize that what once felt like a devastating end was actually the moment Allah stepped in to save you from a road that would have cost you more than you could afford. Closed doors are not signs of being forgotten. They are signs of divine involvement. Allah is actively guiding your steps, even when the path feels uncertain and unfamiliar. Delay often feels heavier than loss because it leaves the heart suspended between hope and disappointment. When prayers are repeated and nothing seems to change, the mind begins to question whether Allah is listening or if the door will ever open. But delay is not denial. It is one of the most misunderstood forms of divine mercy. Allah is never late and He never forgets. His timing unfolds with precision that accounts for what you cannot see, what you are not ready for, and what must align before the gift arrives. Allah knows the state of your heart better than you know it yourself. He knows when you are strong enough to receive, when you are vulnerable enough to break, and when waiting is the very thing shaping your faith. A delayed answer is often Allah protecting you from receiving something before your soul is prepared to carry it. What you think you are ready for emotionally may not yet be safe for you spiritually. In waiting, the heart is trained in tawakkul. You learn to place your trust in Allah without guarantees, without timelines, without visible reassurance. This is where faith becomes real, not when things happen quickly, but when you continue to rely on Allah even when they do not. Allah uses the space between prayer and response to deepen sincerity, humility, and dependence. Remember how Allah speaks of His promise when He wills a thing. He says, "Be," and it is. But before that command reaches the world, countless unseen details must align. People, circumstances, timing, and protection are all being arranged. What feels like stillness is actually movement in the unseen. The heart may grow weary of waiting, but waiting itself is a form of worship when it is carried with patience. Every moment of trust during delay is recorded, and when the answer finally arrives, it often comes with a wisdom that could only have been achieved through time. Pain feels unbearable when it has no meaning. The heart can endure almost anything except the belief that suffering is pointless. This is why faith changes the way pain is carried. When hardship is held with sabr, it does not disappear, but it transforms. It stops being a wound that only hurts and becomes a weight that strengthens the soul. Sabr is not passive endurance. It is an active choice to trust Allah while the heart is still aching. Every test carries a purpose, even when that purpose is hidden. Allah does not waste pain. The tears you shed, the nights you struggle to sleep, the moments you feel emotionally drained, all of it is shaping something within you. With sabr, pain becomes a teacher. It teaches humility when pride once lived, reliance when independence felt sufficient, and compassion where judgment once existed. Hardship softens the heart in ways ease never can. Sabr also protects the heart from bitterness. Without patience, pain can turn into resentment toward Allah, toward people, toward life itself. But when pain is carried with trust, it deepens iman instead of destroying it. This is why Allah praises those who are patient, not because they feel no pain, but because they choose faith over despair. They continue to turn back to Allah even when the test feels unfair. Remember how the Prophet endured loss, rejection, and grief, yet his heart remained anchored in hope. He taught us that true strength is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to remain steadfast within it. Pain does not mean Allah has abandoned you. Often it means He is elevating you in ways comfort never could. When sabr is present, pain no longer defines you. It refines you. It becomes part of the journey that carries the soul closer to Allah, shaping a depth of faith that could not have been reached any other way. Healing does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when the heart releases the illusion of control. Much of human suffering comes not only from pain itself, but from the constant resistance to it, the desire to fix everything immediately, to understand every reason, to secure every outcome. But Allah never asked the heart to carry that burden. Control belongs to Him alone, and peace enters the heart the moment this truth is accepted. Releasing control does not mean abandoning effort. It means letting go of obsession with outcomes. It is continuing to pray without demanding a specific result, trusting that Allah's choice is wiser than your own. When the heart insists on its own plan, disappointment becomes inevitable. But when the heart bows to divine decree, even difficulty carries a sense of calm. This is the essence of tawakkul, doing what is within your capacity, then placing the rest entirely in Allah's hands. Allah knows every detail of your life, the timing of your trials, the depth of your wounds, and the exact form of healing your soul requires. What you think will heal you may not be what will save you. Sometimes Allah heals by removing pain. Other times He heals by increasing strength. and sometimes healing comes through acceptance. The quiet realization that Allah's decree, even when difficult, is never cruel. Holding tightly to control often keeps the heart in a state of fear. Fear of loss, fear of disappointment, fear of the unknown. But surrender shifts the heart from fear to trust. It allows you to rest, not because life is suddenly easy, but because Allah is now at the center instead of anxiety. True healing is not forgetting what hurt you, it is learning to carry it without being consumed by it. When the heart entrusts its wounds to Allah, peace begins to grow, slowly, gently, and deeply. Broken moments have a way of stripping the heart down to its core. When everything familiar falls apart, the soul is forced to ask questions it once avoided. What truly matters? What remains when what I loved is gone? In this breaking, Allah is not distancing you from Him. He is calling you back. The cracks you feel are not signs of ruin. They are openings through which light enters. When life is comfortable, the heart can wander. It becomes attached to people, plans, and identities that feel permanent. But Allah, in His mercy, does not allow the soul to settle in what is temporary. Loss loosens the grip of the dunya. Disappointment reminds the heart that no created thing can fully satisfy it. And pain redirects the soul toward its true home. Closeness to Allah, Allah says that hearts find rest in His remembrance. This is not a poetic idea, it is a spiritual reality. In moments of brokenness, when distractions fall away, remembrance becomes sincere, dua becomes raw, worship becomes intimate. The soul begins to turn toward Allah not out of habit but out of need. And it is in this need that the deepest connection is formed. The journey back to Allah is rarely comfortable. It often passes through grief, confusion, and vulnerability. But every step toward Him is honored. Every tear shed in His presence is a form of return. The heart that feels shattered is often the heart that is closest to being transformed. What feels like falling apart is often the process of being reassembled in a way that aligns with your purpose. Allah uses broken moments to detach the soul from false sources of security and anchor it in Him alone. And when the soul finally rests in that truth, it begins to understand that even the pain was a form of guidance. So if you are standing in the middle of a season that feels unbearably heavy, remember this with certainty: Allah has not forgotten you. He has not overlooked your tears, delayed your prayers without wisdom, or allowed your heart to break without purpose. Every moment of struggle has been measured with divine precision. Every hardship has been permitted only because it carries you closer to Him. Allah does the impossible not when the heart is strongest, but when it is most surrendered. When you reach the point where you say, Ya Allah, I have nothing left but you, that is not defeat, that is the beginning of transformation. Trust that the same Allah who allowed this test will also decide when it ends. And when it ends, it will leave behind a version of you that is more anchored in faith, more aware of His presence, and more at peace than before. Do not rush your healing. Do not compare your journey to anyone else's. Divine timing is personal, intentional, and perfectly aligned with your soul. Continue to remember Allah in the waiting. Continue to turn back to Him even when hope feels fragile, because the heart that remains connected to Allah is ever truly broken. It is being rebuilt. And know this with unwavering faith: no hardship lasts forever, no night is without dawn, and no tear shed for the sake of Allah is ever lost. What lies ahead is not just relief, but wisdom, strength, and a deeper closeness to the one who has been guiding you through every step, even when you could not see it.